stairways and some of the floors, which will warp you to later floors, so you don't have to just climb slowly all the way up. How a stairway leading down could possibly take you from the second floor to the 48th is anyone's guess. So the final dungeon is a pretty long one, but not the longest. By this time, the enemy levels had finally caught up with the level had done on the enemy, and were randomly attacking you every few steps of it. They're not hard, but these green guys called Crypto Level 3 are the worst enemy in the game. They keep running around the screen, not allowing you to attack them. They take a ton of hits. I really don't mind difficulty, but this is just a waste of the player's time, like most of this game. We finally get to the Queen's Chamber, where we have to disguise ourselves as dragons, using an item we got from the Kingdom of Dragons. Turns out the Queen doesn't particularly like the Dark Lord Dark, and doesn't really care whether we destroy him or not. She opens the door to his chamber with a paper pretty to it, and we have to fight through another long hallway while constantly getting attacked by those green guys again. I made it to Double, but it makes you fight 11 of the previous bosses from the game in a row before you can fight them. Now, again, this is not actually very hard, but the problem is that almost every one of these bosses is accompanied by those fucking green guys who take forever to kill. And worst of all, if you slip up and then want to die even once and take the money to continue, you need to start all over again from the first boss. I kept trying, but eventually ran out of Zamzams to heal Marty, and then there was no chance of victory. I'm on a high enough level to beat this for sure, but now I've got to teleport back to one of the towns to buy Zamzams and find my way all the way back through this dungeon again. I'm not doing this. Time for some more leveling, and I want to be the emulator again. Now with my characters on level 45 instead of 42, I can just slowly move around their top one at a time. That's good back to the boss session again. You guys still took a while to kill. Finally, the final battle went up, and we learned that he's actually the son of Olmst, the good guy. Anyway, we easily beat Dark, but Marty feels that something is still not right. We can now teleport out of the dungeon and save the game. We're granted entrance to the Kingdom of the Gods back in the 4th region. The god Olmst thanks Marty for telling him to know his son, and asks Marty to become one of the gods and protect him for eternity. Marty thanks him and says he would rather live on Earth with his new wife, Shufflebeans. Olmst is offended by Marty's refusal, remarking that if he wants human women, he sacrifice as many of them for Marty as he wants. He also reveals that he killed the giant Meliodas, who saved Earth, since he posed a threat to him. It also reveals that he had been quietly helping his son Dark occasionally behind the scenes, choosing to assist his own blood of the gods, rather than faithful human mortals. So Marty says to the party, "What do you say, guys? Should we give this guy a beating?" And before we know it, we're fighting the true Antichrist, the god Olmst. Now, at least this boss doesn't have a dungeon you have to go through beforehand, but even with my characters all the way up to level 45, they were still constantly missing, indicating that their level was probably still a little too low. When we finally did get him flashing, he was low on his feet. He just healed himself. Well, this is nice. We already got through the final dungeon and defeated the Dark Lord, and now the game won't even let us see the end. If I was still on level 42, I probably would have been able to do some more leveling, which would have taken days unless I used the emulator. This game is evil. But luckily, level 45 seems to have been just enough to scrape by. When I got him flashing again, he didn't heal himself, and we finished him off. After weeks of suffering, finally his fate was up. Marty didn't want to become a god, but he became the closest thing this world has to a god, quietly continuing to protect him. No one else ever arose to try to take the place of Olmst. Marty and Shuffleners moved to Shuffleners' village, and rejoined their newly lived life together. Marty turned the story of his adventure into a best-selling book, became famous, and Shuffleners then finds out that Marty is cheating. You think I'm joking? That's what it says. Rostam married Tinia, and they're currently deciding whether to train their first child as a swordsman or a sorcerer. Poole returned to his village and gave all the money he had earned to his mother. He became a fighting champion, plans to turn the character class of Gresh into a worldwide sport. As for Lou Baker, he tried to write a companion novel to Marty's bestseller, but when he tried to remember the important parts of their adventure, he realized he had been sent out to buy supplies for most of it. and went back to being an alcoholic. The parents, for some reason, don't have any music, which feels really weird. Once they're done scrolling, they hit some of the keyboard keys to make sound effects or lay down some bad beats. Zappos does have a sound test, and a very interesting looking one indeed. Simply hold B on the keyboard while looking at the game. Be sure to also replace this A with B in order to hear the music from both discs. The PC-98 version of Zappos has much nicer color graphics in the opening and ending. The decapitation graphic in the opening is so brutal, I'm not even going to show it. The scrolling and character movement looks much smoother than the PC-88 version. This one doesn't require any disc changing, even when you save. Best of all, they changed it so you can use the trigger button on the gamepad to advance the battle text. Other than those improvements, it's pretty much the exact same game. The X68000 version includes all the improvements from the PC-98 version, and it is the smoothest port of the game, as you would expect. The opening and ending graphics look the nicest in this version, and it also features a really nice stereo rendition of the soundtrack. Zappos was a minor hit in its time, and even got a sequel in the PC-98. There was definitely a segment of Japanese PC gamers in the 80s who wanted games to be as long and difficult as possible. Even today, you can definitely find Japanese gamers who have nostalgia for this game, but as a newcomer, this game hasn't aged well. I haven't even mentioned yet that some of the things you need to do to progress are so counterintuitive I couldn't imagine playing without a watch. But most importantly, this game just doesn't respect the player's choice. This hopeless, not even mine. This is probably a game I should have made a video about back in but once I was far enough in, I thought I might as well see it to the end. Should have turned back when I had the chance. The game had a lot of interesting ideas, some of which even sound good on paper, but most of which don't actually make for a fun playing experience. I really wanted to like Zappos, and even had some fun near the beginning making the party stronger. But a game that's this hard, it's quite satisfying to see your characters actually getting better, and each level up makes a huge difference in this one. But in the end, I wouldn't recommend Zappos to my worst enemy. Anyone who does attempt it for some reason should definitely have a couple walkthroughs handy and just use an emulator so you turn up the speed. Maybe only then will you be able to see some of what makes Zappos popular in its time, and also what can blow you on the map. For watching this episode of PC88 Paradise. Lots of good patrons up on the board this time, and sincere thanks. I can't even begin to express my appreciation for all the generosity. This has been Mr. James, signing off. Welcome back to PC88 Paradise, the series where we take a close look at classic games from the 80s and PC88 and 1980s. Today we're looking at an extremely popular game, which proves once again that Japanese PC gamers back then were total masochists. A game which this Hardcore Gaming 101 article calls an infamously player-unfriendly RPG. It's Last Armageddon. And I want to thank Halloween for writing this article, by the way. It has a lot of valuable info and helped prepare me for the game. Also, So thanks to them for all the work they do. Last Armageddon was the brainchild of Takia Iti. Most people novels, as well as visual novels like Apocalypse. For Last Armageddon, people designed the game. Ironically, the first game of his covered in Japan. After Last Armageddon, he designed and wrote the first Blue Eye game, and he wrote the story for the second one. And no one credited, according to this interview, was producer of Alshon up until it was nearly complete, but decided to resign due to creative differences. Oh well, by then he had also created his own development group called Pandora Box. But in his early outing, Last Armageddon, he made up a post-apocalyptic hellscape where monsters duke it out with aliens to determine who will rule the world. Well, sounds like fun. And excuse me for a personal tangent, but I've always thought that this game was called Last Armageddon due to the way it's written in Japanese. Katakana readers will notice that the word Armageddon actually begins with an H sound. This is apparently due to the original Hebrew the word comes from. And so it was usually written like Armageddon in Japanese translations of the Bible and other uses of the title of this game. But when the 1998 movie Armageddon was released in Japan, they changed the way Armageddon is written in katakana to begin with an A sound rather than English. And since then, this has become the generally preferred way to write Armageddon in popular Japanese culture. Don't wanna lose my heart. Don't wanna forget the age, 'cause I miss that age. Don't wanna miss it. Anyway, let's take a look at Last Armageddon. On the cover, we've got this awesome illustration of all the monsters. And the back calls the game both the final RPG and the greatest RPG. So screw you, RPGs made after 1988. Inside, we first have a black and white manual which goes over how to start and play the game. In the color manual, enemies, spells, equipment, etc. Next, we have a fold-out record manual. The game itself is stored on 7 floppy disks. First, to watch the opening, we set disks A and B before powering on. We're informed that this is Brain Brain's work of 1988. Back in the day, we had way cooler brain-themed video game companies, like Electro Brain. Brain Brain, I assume, must have something to do with brain. Anyway, they were a short-lived company that only released 3.5 different games before disbanding. I've always known them best for the PC Engine game, Ephera, and Guild War. That was a pretty decent one. The world could always use more two-player action RPGs. But oh yeah, we were gonna watch the opening of Last Armageddon. It's the future, and humans are gone. Nobody knows why they died off. But from the depths of hell emerged the monsters, who quickly announced that now if the humans die, the age of monsters has begun. But not so fast. Somebody shoots a hole straight through the skeleton skull and blasts the guts right out of the victim. It's the aliens who have come from light years away to make the Earth their 131st colony. To warn the others, Skeleton's eyeball crawls out and is carried back to the underground layer of the monster's back gargoyle. Then the title logo gradually rises from the ground in human fashion. Back in the monster's lair, Gargoyle uses Skeleton's eye like a projector to show the aliens to the other monsters. Gargoyle cries out in pain as worm-like monsters take control of his body. Again, the aliens release themselves to the monsters. They let them know that if they dare interfere with their conquest of the Earth, obliteration awaits. The other monsters just finish off the possessed Gargoyle with more information. Now the monsters are pissed. Nobody fucks with them and their planet. But then the Earth begins to shake, and on the screen they see that a large stone cabin is landing outside. It has something that he returns peace to the earth for the countless people. The monsters conclude that there must be some other entity out there trying to communicate. This requires investigation. It could be an opportunity to find out what happened to Europe, and also why there's now an extra long day with treacherous weather on the first of every month. The monsters call this day the crushing day of sorrow. They decided to send out one representative from each of the 12 monster planets, but some of them can only survive and others during the day. Still others, like the Androspace and Burner, can now only survive on the crushing day of sorrow. So they